Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So what I'm going to tell you could be considered an exploit, so use at your own risk. And hopefully this can get it at least fixed sooner than later. Now, of course, it would be to the advantage of the company to delay fixing this. So I personally do not recommend going out there and spending a lot of Astro Diamonds to get this companion. It's going to be expensive. Not many people will have it, because of the drop rates from lockboxes. It's the only place you can get this new companion. I speak of the Blaspheme Assassin. And yes, it is utterly broken right now in the right combo. She can basically deal the same damage as a DPS, a fully fledged DPS player, if not more, in a trial scenario. Completely busted. And how, you ask, does that work? Well, because of her mechanics, her abilities with regards to her twin daggers and the bleed effect from it. I just went over my video where I covered companions, and I was saying that the Blaspheme Assassin, not really the best because of the fact of those bleeds, and she takes 45 seconds to get all of the stacks of bleed. Needs 10 stacks then to deal maximum damage. But it's not just the bleed. She has this hemophilic strike, which when on a target causes her bleeds to deal more damage. And guess what? You are correct. It stacks. This hemophilic strike makes it so that the enemy takes more damage, and additionally, twin daggers stacks the other companion's bleeds. Now, not what you would think to a limit of 10. The limit is one companion plus another. So if you're in a trial, you have 10 people each using this companion. You can have 100 stacks of bleed. Each stack makes the bleed deal more damage. Completely broken. You can see in the new trial, we have 8 people using this companion. You can see, I'm going to pause right here. These are the bleed stacks of the Blaspheme Assassin here on the right side. We currently have 10. I'll let it play, and we can see those stacks are quickly going up and up and up. Now, again, it takes 45 seconds before all of the companions to get their maximum of 10 bleed. So it takes a bit of time to build up. But once it does, it gets crazy. We're at 34 bleed stacks, 41, and it's only getting higher. Now, this means you're going to gain the best benefit from this in a fight that lasts a certain length of time without the boss disappearing to like reset their stacks on them. Right now you can see we have 71 bleed stacks, 72, 74, 76, 77, and finally we're going to hit the maximum of 80 because we have 8 of those companions. It's crazy, and I'll show you. If you then call artifacts while having 80 of those bleed buffs, and it's not just those 80 bleed buffs, you also have 8 of these buffs, the hemophilic strike buffs, which increases the bleed damage again. And on top of that, you also have the like fairy fire debuff, which is supposed to work, and you'll have 8 of those as well. You see that just up there. It's supposed to reduce the enemy's defense and deflect, but absolutely crazy. We call artifacts, and let's have a look at the logs. And here you can see what I mean by being broken. So this is this one guy's Blaspheme Assassin. Just one person's Blaspheme Assassin. This is an artifact call. You can see it's hitting once every second. And we have hits up to 1.4 million. Yeah, he's hitting for over 1 million damage per second. So this companion in like an artifact call is dealing like nearly 15 million damage. It's freaking crazy. That's around about the damage you would do as a normal player in an artifact call. And you can see, like, this is just a quick snippet I took after 2 minutes of being in the fight when we started like the phase 2 with Xemnid. And you can see, like, after 2 minutes of the fight, the DPS of the companions is nuts. It's like the same level as a player. Like this guy, he has 359,000 counter DPS, and the companion behind him is on 336,000 counter DPS. You look at the rest of them there, and it's just insane. Like, take two of the healers, so this is Sin and Nasty, and you like add up their encounter DPS, and that's like more damage than a DPS player is dealing. It's completely mental. It's broken as all hell. Now again, I do not recommend buying this thing. It's broken now. I'm making the video to announce that it's broken. Hopefully it becomes aware and the devs take it as a priority to fix it. We're on the preview server. I could just get a whole bunch of these for free, copying them over, and then we could test them out. So no worries there. We weren't exploiting or anything. Not to say that people can't do it on the live server. I don't recommend doing it. You can get banned for it, especially if you're going to use it to cheese the trial. But it'll definitely be pretty expensive to get everybody to have this companion. So again, we were running with 8 of them in our tests here, in our runs. We had somebody on the Spine Devil and I was on the Scorpion, and then 8 of the other ones. I would have liked to run with 9 to see like the maximum damage, but still having them hit for like 1.4 million, just crazy. And looking on the ACT, you can see what I mean by the build up. So like, this is when we switch over to fighting Xemnid. You start out with like the bleeds hitting for maybe like casual 18k, but then you call artifacts here, you get all the debuffs. They're hitting up to 240k, and after the debuffs drop off, you're back down to maybe just casual 150k per bleed. This is hitting once per second, guys, and then it's going up and up and up, 200k to 400k, and that's just continual tick tick tick. And you can see there 580k, 600k. This is not an artifact call, this is just casual ticking away with the bleed. 680k there because some dodges, back to some nice hits there of 800k up to 900k, and then call the artifact call and you're up there 1.4 million, 1.3 million. Just crazy. And then you're off, and just, yeah, this damage is nuts considering it's just a bleed. It's just damage over time effect every second, and if you have 8 companions dealing this much damage, well, okay, at least 6 with 6 DPS players, yeah, that's dealing like more DPS, more damage per second than the average player. A lot more. Like, DPS players, you're looking at, let's say we see this trial here, 400,000 encounter DPS. That's 400,000 DPS per second. You have, after a period, that companion hitting for like 600,000 damage per second on those bleeds. It's, yeah, this cannot remain in the game like this. I'm afraid no. It shouldn't stack like that with the bleeds. You should be able to get 10 bleeds, and even as it is, where you can just get 10 bleeds and use the other companions to stack those bleeds like really quickly in the fight, still makes this companion really good. Like, here we're starting the fight again with Xemnid, and you can see those bleed stacks go up nice and quickly. And once they're at 10, then the companion would be dealing the maximum amount of damage, which, as per my companion document, was like 48,000 DPS. That's all right. That's reasonable. It does make the assassin like best in slot, and it would make it best in slot then if like all the DPS used it to be able to quickly get those bleed stacks. But as it stands now, you can see you can quickly go over 10 bleed stacks, all the way up to the maximum of 10 times the amount of companions you're running within the trial. You could run 10 of those companions, run like Demogorgon, and absolutely melt the boss through those phases. Melt Garistro, melt Demogorgon, and just insane because your companion will be dealing like 1 million damage per second on a bleed. That's a joke. So just a heads up, and I know many of you have actually asked that in the comment section of my previous video. Do the bleeds stack? Are you able to use one companion to trigger the bleeds for another? And yes, you can, evidently. You can gain a ton of bleed stacks. Now, most of the teammates here are pretty dead, and yeah, we don't have that many bleed stacks. Not as crazy as you saw earlier. But still, even with this companion being so broken, the trial is still really difficult, because the only time you can really take advantage of those bleed stacks is, yeah, when you're fighting Xemnid. So that's phase 2, phase 5, and phase 7. And yeah, you're still going to be struggling in phase 1 to survive if you are, and then phase 3, because you're split in 2 groups, the companions can't really stack their bleeds that well. And also then you have, like, let's say the phasing of like Hallister, or the phasing of Zariel and the baby, and so on. And as soon as the boss phases, like, disappears, all the bleed stacks are gone, and that build up is gone. You need a build up of like 45 seconds in order for them to get all of those stacks of bleed for them to then maximize their damage. Without that build up time, the companion is not much better than any other. And on initial inspection, when I actually ran this companion in the new trial, it wasn't looking good for it. It was like it had its DPS at the same level of like a pseudo dragon. And that was again because it wasn't able to maintain its own bleed stacks. It would like die, the stacks might expire, or the boss would phase and the stacks are gone. And so it wasn't actually getting enough sustained damage. And yeah, so you're ending up with companions like the Green Scale Bowman being ranged, being able to outperform it by a decent amount. But that's again using it solo. Nobody else was using the assassin, so it wasn't stacking bleed like you can right here. Anyway, it's just crazy how many bleed stacks you can obtain and how much damage this companion can do. Like, dealing more damage than players is definitely broken, and definitely should not be a thing. I don't think they intended that when they made this companion, and when they decided to make these companion adjustments, right? It was not the intent for them to deal similar damage to players. So hopefully this is somewhat insightful, you guys. Yes, it's completely broken, and definitely expect it to get fixed. Don't invest anything into just trying to use this for yourself. By all means, mess around on the previous server with it. Could be some fun, but I wouldn't do it on the live server, not at the cost of the companion and at the risk of getting labeled as an exploiter for using that to your advantage. Massive thank you again to all these channel members for their added support, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.